Hello and welcome to TAL Radio. At TAL, we connect those who are in need to those who are willing to give. As I always say, giving is not everybody's task. There are few people who are meant for that. And today, I'm so fortunate to have one such person again with me in the studios of TAL Radio. Let's welcome Dr. Sampath. You're listening to this beautiful series called Mindfulness. And in the earlier episode, we talked about how to develop a culture of excellence, its impact on individuals, organization, and as a society at whole. And today it is going to be a little different. Different because probably this is going to be an episode that every genre, every age can connect to. We would be talking about games. And mind you, I'm not talking about computer games, but the games of this beautiful life of ours. Let me just try to simplify things. Games are a very important part of life. We all play it. But how can they really help us in inculcating values and learning, whether it's an organization or at an individual level? And there's nobody else better than Dr. J.M. Sampath to really dive us and walk us through this matter. So Dr. J.M. Sampath, all over to you. How do we use games in our life in learning as such?
Thank you, Sandy, for this session, and this is a session very close to my heart: games and self-awareness and value education. It was accidental that I learned how to bring in games to help people achieve self-awareness and gain clarity on values. It's a long story, but I think it's a worthy story. I'm not a voracious reader, but if you give me a fat book, it's likely to become a pillow for me. But if you give me a paragraph which has a beginning and end in itself, I will read that and ruminate over it for days together and try to extract the essence out of it. I used to believe, and I tell people, that our mind should be like a crusher which can take oil out of husk. That's how intense it should be when you are trying to reflect on something and try to extract the essence out of it. So knowing me, when I finished my training way back in 85, my friends gave me a book called The Song of the Bird, which had nothing but 175 parables and anecdotes. Each page was independent of the other page. So you open a page, it won't take more than 20-30 seconds to read. So I was posted to Hyderabad and I was in the executive hostel. So one of my pastime would be morning, just before leaving to the office, I would open a page, read whatever comes up, hardly 20-30 seconds, go to my breakfast table, we were in the campus, walk to the office. But I would keep this parable or anecdote that I read in my mind through the day and try to understand what is this trying to tell me. Sometimes just before going to bed, I would open a page, read, and just think about it and fall asleep. So I did this for a while, and 6 months would have gone by. One morning when I'd read a parable and I was reflecting on it, it suddenly occurred to me that the characters in the parable were not out there in the book. They've been in my life at different points of time. I've been the gullible goat. I've also been the manipulative fox. I've been the overconfident hare. I've also been the slow and steady tortoise. Suddenly I said, is it true about all parables? So I started reading parables. I started collecting books on parables. I have a personal collection of over 7,000 plus parables and anecdotes and stories right now. And those days I was mad. You could always see me in the children's section of bookstore. So what was amazing was I could connect to every parable, the characters in the parable, the props used in the parable to get some points out. And I was quite amazed. So immediately what I did was I went and told my senior executives, hey, look, I want to do a small experiment with parables. Would you all give me some time? They looked at me and said, parables, stories, too old for it. We'll get you our children. So one of the senior executives got his teenager children, 2 of them and their friends, 4 of them, and invited me for a high tea. So I went, met them, and I told them the story of hare and tortoise, which all of us know. The hare and tortoise went for a race. The hare invited the tortoise for a race, knowing very well he's going to win. So the race starts, and the hare goes so halfway, and finds tortoise
Falls asleep.
falls asleep, and the tortoise keeps trotting and
True.
reaches the finishing line before the hare could, and so the tortoise wins the race. So when I said the story, the children obviously said, "Uncle, we know the story." So I said, "I also know you know the story, but tell me in recent past, when were you the hare or when were you the tortoise?" Immediately, one of the boys said, "My dad got a video. Those days, videos were very popular. I was watching the video he brought, and when I went and wrote the math test, I got 98. My friend got 100 out of 100. I think I was the hare, a little overconfident without preparing enough for my exams." And another girl said Sanskrit was a tough subject for me. I decided to spend half an hour every day. At the end of the year, I topped the class. Maybe I was the tortoise, worked slowly, but at the end, got the race in my favor. So when I left them, what they said became the trigger for me to have developed the game that I'm going to share a little later. They said, "Uncle, we never thought about this parable from this perspective. Hare and tortoise, don't be overconfident, nothing to do with me. But for the first time, we are realizing that we ourselves are sometimes overconfident, because of which we lose some races. And by working hard, taking small steps consistently, we end up winning the race." So as I walked from that meeting to my hostel, I was saying, how do I get this message across to people, and how do I really develop this as a tool? And that's how the game come book discovery was born.
That is so beautiful. And while you were telling this, beautiful story about the hare and the tortoise, I think we all have read it as kids. And I think in the end, we would just remember the moral of the story. We would never ever try to assess ourselves or probably try to put ourselves in those situations. And even if we were, did we connect the dots? Did we think that this, we have read it, when we were kids and we are actually behaving like that? But that's very thoughtful. And, while I was just, preparing for this very episode and this topic of having mindfulness or inculcating values or learning in life through games, actually, when I was thinking about this very podcast today, so all I could think that life is a very complex game, very, very complex game in itself. Do we really need to add more games to learn?
I think I would say life is game, but more deeper at a deeper level. Life is nothing but a series of stories. This conversation between us could be a story that you could narrate to a friend of yours. Every interaction we have is a story. At the end of that interaction, at the end of that story, there is a subtle moral that is left behind, which is either conscious, subconscious, or unconscious. And that eventually becomes the base which makes us run the life the way we run at a personal level. So, if you really see, I don't think we get time to sit and reflect on our stories.
True.
We don't sit and take the time to understand, hey, what are the significant stories today that I came across, which I was a part of, and what is the moral of that story? I don't think we really think through that. Even the major experiences we have, we see them as experiences in events rather than stories. However, each of these events, each of these experiences, each of these stories leave a very, very significant or a important moral which becomes a part of your personality eventually. Particularly when those experiences repeat or when those stories repeat, they become a part of you. So, what did I do when I came back? I created a game. I said, how do I really attract people to delve into values? Because those days it was considered a very serious subject. So, I created a snake and ladder chart. There are 100 boxes. 10 snakes and 10 ladders. Snakes are symbolically dysfunctional values. Ladders are functional values. The rest of the boxes are values or qualities or traits or attributes which one needs to know. So the primary objective that I set for this game was to introduce basic human values to a person and to initiate a process of self-inquiry which takes care of the need to learn to learn. It also aims at giving you the multiple facets of a value. It's interesting, though there are standard dictionaries, each of us carry our own meaning for the values that we carry. What I mean by that is, the minute I say discipline, you have your meaning for discipline, I have my meaning for discipline. An army officer will have his meaning for discipline. A doctor will have a different meaning for discipline. An engineer will have a different meaning for discipline. Actually, in fact, I had a doctor, an engineer, and a HR person playing this game. And when the word discipline came, each of them had such a different meaning. So many a time when my meaning doesn't match with your meaning for the same value, there's already a conflict.
Absolutely. In fact, I still remember, in one of the episodes, when we were discussing about values, you had referred to a very beautiful thing that everything is with respect to a context. There is a context. So when you talk about that people have different meanings for discipline, it's actually the context because the professions are different, the lives are different. So probably the context is totally different here.
Exactly. So their life is revolving around certain dimensions, and those dimensions predominantly define whatever they are perceiving of certain values that they live by. So now, if you see, the snake and ladder chart has been existing for over 500 years. In South, we play during Mahashivratri to keep awake. There is a 164 box snake and ladder chart. It's called in Tamil Parmapadam. And when I was developing this game, I went and did a lot of research, and I was told there is a manual on this game few hundred years ago in the temples. While I couldn't lay my hand on it, it's a very well designed game which you play through the night during Shivratri, and symbols have been created so powerfully to enable you to unconsciously realize few things in life, to basically understand what it means to be a human. So therefore, it's a very very well thought through and well what designed game. I also went and found a 164 box snake and ladder chart for Jain monks. What are the things they should not do were snakes? What are the things they should do was ladders? So it was a very interesting game form to help them understand what it means to be a good monk, Jain monk. So therefore, the snake and ladder chart has been used by several communities for several things. I started doing a lot of research on parables, and parables also been used many places. I don't know if you know the origin of Jataka tales, which is the oldest.
True.
These originated during the life of monks in the monastery, and the monks were very young, and they were not able to deal with their own behaviors, and there were a lot of conflicts that were showing up in the monastery. So the well matured monks said that if you don't inculcate a way of reflection in the monks, it's less likely that they will realize and they will inculcate it. You can call and tell them, look, your ego is too much, you'll have to reduce your ego. That's not going to work. But if we allow them to realize that and reflect on it, maybe the uptake might be better. So what they did was they picked up the events that were happening in the monastery, brought in animal characters and wrote Jataka tales.
Okay.
And made the monks reflect on the tales. Now it was easy to look at a rabbit being overconfident and a tortoise being consistent, rather than telling you are overconfident and somebody else is. So that is how the Jataka tales were made. And they are, I have 3 volumes. They have more than 1,200 parables. So I was quite amazed, and they have survived. Some of the parables that I came across in the Chinese literature, there's a book called Zen Bone, Zen Flesh. Some of those parables in them are 5,000 year old. Give me a literature which has survived even 500 years. It's very difficult.
True.
So parables have a way of, by word of mouth, they survive time, but the essence is kept. For some reason, I think because we became less and less reflective, we forgot the bridge between the parable and our existence. And parables became a story with a moral, but nothing to do with us. So I had to find a way to reconnect that and bring that bridge. So what I did was I picked up 100 parables for these 100 boxes, and there were values or qualities or traits or attributes. I picked up a parable which had the central theme of the value or attribute that I placed in that box. Now, to give you an example, the first box on the play chart is House of Learning, which is the story that goes with it is eat your own fruit. Some disciples once complained to their guru, you tell us stories but never reveal their meaning to us. And the guru replied, how do you like it if someone offered you fruit and chewed it before giving it to you?
True.
So it is very clear that you better chew it yourself. You better reflect on it and try to understand what it means to you. Somebody cannot chew and extract the essence and give it to you. So therefore, reflection becomes a very critical piece. So, like that, for remaining 99 boxes, there are 99 parables. And all of these are very select values, qualities, traits, and attributes which are required to understand what it means to be a human.
That
Now,
is
the parables were there,
good.
the chart was there, I linked them, that was good. But how do I build the reflection? So, I created three levels of playing this game. The level one is called the level of explicit learning, wherein three obvious statements are made based on the parable and the value. A player is to choose one statement which he or she thinks is the most appropriate. Here again, what I did was, it is easy to choose between right and wrong. But if I make all the statements equally right, you start thinking which is more right. And therefore, you are sinking into the subject. So there are three choices from which you'll have to pick up one choice. So therefore, you are dwelling on it a little more because everything is right. And you'll have to choose between the rights, not right and wrong. So here the three choices for the story on learning is learn to see the world from your own point of view. You can't see the world through others' eyes. We always want someone to think for us. Now, all are equally right. So how do you make a choice? So people make a choice, and there's nothing right or wrong about any choice that you make here. The second level is called the level of experiential learning, wherein you ask to share your own real life experience related to the character's experience in the parable. So the
Got it.
options I've given there is share an incident wherein you're dependent on someone to learn, share an incident wherein someone wants to see the world through you, share what it means to see the world through one's own eyes.
Got
Now,
it.
so when you start narrating your own story, your own experience. Now, let me give you an example of a story where I was dependent on someone to see the world. What did it do to me? Like, I'm the youngest kid of the four siblings, and my brother was eldest brother was 9.5 years older to me. He was the first graduate in the family. My parents were not all that educated. So he took the paternal role and he started guiding us. And there's nothing that we would do without consulting him. And when I was quitting my job at the age of 27, 28, I called upon him and he came all the way from Chennai to Hyderabad, spent a day with me. At the end of the day, we decided, okay, it's good for me to quit the job. And I quit the job. But that was the time that I was also working on discovery and I was just bringing out discovery. And I was asking myself, why am I dependent on him to make my decisions? And the answer I got was very uncomfortable.
Oh.
If something goes wrong, I can hold him responsible.
Oh.
So that is when I said, moving forward, I'm not going to depend on anybody to make my life decisions. So I'm going to do it on my own. So as luck would have it, I moved my job. I moved to Delhi. Within 11 months, I decided to quit the job. But this time I didn't consult anybody. I quit the job and I went back to Chennai where my parents were there. My eldest brother was there. We all were in the same house. For some reason, my brother got upset with me and it was very obvious at the drop of the hat we would get into argument. But we both were quite sensitive enough to understand why. And it took time to reflect and go to the root of the issue. But when I discovered the root of the issue, it was such a big awareness. Somewhere as we were growing up, we were dependent on him. And without his knowledge, he grew dependent on our dependency over him. And when I withdrew my dependency, he became upset. So that is when I realized in my life that dependency on somebody itself is dangerous, but dependency on somebody's dependency on you can be even more risky. So if you see, the story is so subtle, but when you go into your life stories, you end up discovering that we all have such stories in our life where we want somebody to chew and give it to us so that we will run our life. We don't take the pain to chew our own learnings and extract our own essence from events in life. So therefore, that is the second level. The third level is introspective learning, where deep fundamental questions have been raised based on the value abstract as well as values related to one's own self. All that you expect to do at this level is to respond to these questions, while the answers can keep changing with one's own inner growth. And the three questions for this parable are: how do I learn? What motivates me to learn? What is the process of learning? Now, each of us have different ways of learning. Somebody learns from experience, somebody learns from books, somebody learns from others' experience. So when I answer that question, the first answer that comes to me is I learn by looking within. That is my primary source of learning. So each of us have our own source of learning. What motivates me to learn? For many of us, motivation is to know more, to grow in life, to do so many things. What motivates me to learn is self-discovery. Can I discover a little more about myself? Can I discover a little more about? And what is the process of learning? How does learning really occur? So if you see, there's a parable, there are three levels of questions. And when you play this, you suddenly realize with people, there is so much that is happening. And there is so much of sharing that's happening. And we suddenly realize that one never realized that there is possibility to review one's life so easily because the game provides the context for us to review our life.
Dr. Sampath, believe it or not, I did not feel like asking a single question in between. The reason is not thoroughly listening and and I was trying to put myself in all those questions that you're technically asking. But something that really struck my mind is when you tell people, when you take these kind of session, how do you convince others to play this game? Because when somebody would do it, there is a self discovery, as you mentioned, and not everybody is ready to face that mirror. It is a difficult thing to do. Hadn't been easy, we would have done it ourselves, right? It's not an easy thing.
The minute you put it in a game format, it becomes easy and it becomes more comfortable to open up. It reduces the guards. I have done this in many cultures, many countries, and very interestingly, 3 years ago, Discovery got translated into French and is being used by one of the largest universities in Belgium to train people to use Discovery in developing reflection among people in Belgium. So I'm answering your question that it is not just here; everywhere it is being now used. So I have played this game with over 1,000+ groups in my last 3 decades, and we have all the time found it to be very, very powerful tool to help people open up. I will narrate one incident where I did a workshop for senior management in Malaysia for a utility company. And we
would love to hear.
Phased intervention. So they would attend one phase, come back after a month, then attend another phase, come back after another month for the third phase. So during the second phase, we had used this game, Discovery. And in the third phase, when they came, so I was asking them, what have you been doing in the 1 month that we, after the workshop? So one of the guys, and Malaysia is a Muslim country, he took a lot of courage to say what he said. And I want to use it in the right context, nothing to undermine anything. He said, Sampath, I've started playing Discovery with my children. Earlier, I used to read Quran to them and they would get bored. And I started playing Discovery and they are loving it. Wow. And interestingly, both are saying the same thing. What's the big deal about it?
Beautiful.
For me to hear that from somebody in that culture was the best that could have happened.
True.
So, it is being used in several contexts today for several objectives. But to come back to the context in which we are talking, if we can find a way to bring about discussions on subtle, difficult subjects using a parable, then I think it becomes very, very interesting. It is not something which is difficult. But if you straight away open the subject, I will give you another story that recently somebody shared, and they had used one of the parables from Discovery in this context. There was this one of our facilitators and partners in the organization where we work with schools, lives in Delhi, and she lives in a very large apartment complex, and there were the gardener's kids with whom she wanted to use what we were working with children in schools with the gardener's children. And one of the girls said she wants to become a fashion designer, and so our partner, she said, good, we will support you if you need any help financially. You go and find out what is required. So she went, and there was an entrance exam. Coming from the background it was going to be tough. Then our partner asked, what are you going to do? She said, don't worry, I will pass the exam. So she worked hard and she cleared the exam. And finally she got through also. And if you go to a fashion school and if you're a gardener's daughter, the kind of things that you come with and the kind of things others come with can be it can create a huge complex for you.
Absolutely.
So my friend and associate partner in the education program, she asked, how are you coping? And she said, Didi, you remember you told a story from Discovery about the black balloons, and I will narrate the story for us to get the context. There are two kids who, one of them slightly dark complexion. They go to a village fair and they're going from stall to stall, and suddenly they come across this balloon wala who is filling the helium gas into the balloons, and in order to attract the children, he snaps off a white balloon, red balloon, yellow balloon, blue balloon. They all soar up in the sky. The little boy who's watching that goes to the guy and says, if you snap the black balloon, will it go as high as the other balloons? Understanding the question of the boy, the balloon wala snaps the thread that's holding the black balloon. And as it soars, he says, my dear son, it is not the color of the balloon which makes it go up. It is what I fill in. And I fill the same
Oh,
thing into every balloon. And the
lovely.
girl said, every time I find any pressure, I think that we all are made of the same thing. So I don't need to be really worried. I can soar as high as they are as long as I keep moving and I keep trusting myself. So therefore, a parable has a very powerful way of instilling a certain value in us at a deeper level, which becomes a part of us. And through the game, it becomes when we are able to connect those parables to our own real life stories, we get a chance to revisit our life, re examine, and become more aware of what we are made of and what we have learned from the various experiences that we have had in life. So, therefore, a game format is definitely a very interesting way to reflect and build self awareness in individuals. But at the same time, when we talk about games or gamification today, you have so many computer games. I think the kind of shooting and killing that happens in some of the computer games, even watching them makes me develop a headache. Having said
Absolutely.
that, I'm not against those games. They definitely build several other skills that are required for young people, which will keep them very capable to meet the demands of the future. It helps them to do multi-skilling and so on. But when I talk about games, I talk about how do you bring realization in people using games as a means, by making them do something, by making them live something, by making them revisit their own life stories. You can create a lot of opportunities for self awareness and understanding values at a deeper level.
True, and especially, when you were mentioning about the kind of games that you have actually discovered and you have invented, I can say, they do not only get self awareness in an individual, but it's also about self discovery, and they are certainly 100% different than all the computer games that everybody plays today. Because your games are actually well knitted and well suited for a society, not as an individual, I can say for sure. Listening to your talks, at least.
We have played this game with what elders in elders communities. We have done this in societies, and we have found right now one of my friend is using this for the specially abled parents community, bringing them awareness on how to deal with the specially abled children that they are blessed with, and how they can start revisiting and become more aware of themselves in being able to deal with them better. So they've been used in several contexts, and they've been finding it useful to bring about change in themselves. That has not been an issue for them.
Absolutely. And on that wonderful note, before I let you go, I really want you to at least give one very important message that people can really learn through the games that you've actually discovered for others.
I think if we can go few layers below what we are consciously engaging on a day-to-day basis, there is something in everything that we do. It's just that I need to step down one level and see what am I engaged in. Maybe go another step below and see what I'm engaged in. And then suddenly you'll realize that this life itself is a beautiful game. And there is so much of awareness that's being created for us through the events that we live on a daily basis. It's just that I think many of us have not taken the time off or never considered our own life as a very beautiful game and a book to be read and understood. And if we start doing that, I think on a daily basis, there is so much of wisdom that you are actually creating subconsciously or unconsciously. It's just that you need to find a way to rediscover or replay those stories in your mind and see what are the lessons that you can pick up from what you've been through that day, been through that week, been through that month, been through that year. And I'm sure life will be a lot more fun, and you'll realize that there is no bigger game than the life itself.
Absolutely. There is no bigger game than the life itself. And very beautifully, you curated these two sentences that, our life is a beautiful story that we have probably never read and a beautiful game that we have never played.
Say them, but we don't sit and reflect on it.
Yes, true. And if somebody wants to reflect on it and wants to get connected with you, then what is the way for that?
As I've always told, I could be reached on my email, sampath at arpitha.com. And if somebody is interested in discovery, they can go and Google Discovery by James Sampath. And in India, it's available on Amazon. They can, and if they find it difficult to get it, they can always reach us. They can mail me, and we will find a way to reach it.
Beautiful. And there's one more. Yes, I was about to say the soul kathas.
Yeah, I
How can
think
we miss that?
yeah, they're doing well. I think 29 episodes have been already published. We publish every Sunday, and the responses are very good. I would invite the what viewers to just visit on the Instagram handle the Soul Kathas, TheSoulKathas. You will find many interesting stories and life lessons that we can learn from them.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Dr. A.M. Sampath. And thanks a lot to our lovely audience who's been following this beautiful series called Mindfulness. And as we were just discussing in the starting of this very episode, that you have a lot of people who are responding to you and saying that,
Yes.
yes, it is going a very beautiful and a lovely way. So thanks to all those people who are taking out time to write those lovely messages. And keep on listening and keep on watching to TAL Radio. Thank you so much.